So how can anyone explain Lord of the Rings with just the map? Well, first you need to know that it's 12 times more efficient to travel by water than by land. Before you had a car, this meant coastlines and rivers were the way you could trade and get rich. So if a king controlled a river, then they could tax that river trade, build an army and expand through that river to tax more trade, to build a bigger army and expand further throughout that river. This is why Osgiliath is so important. Sitting on the strategically vital location between the three powers of Rohan, Gondor and Mordor, it was likely a hub of great culture and potential before Mordor fell upon it. So why was Mordor the one to attack? As an arid region, Mordor has less arable land than Rohan or Gondor, so it will always have less people and less taxes to bring in, so they will always lag behind in agrarian economic development. With Osgiliath right there, all they really need to do is take and hold it. Furthermore, Gondor likely had its own problems during this time, most notably its loss of South Gondor. This can mostly be explained by Gondor being already an incredibly defensible realm, what with all the mountains and river choke points. However, in its prosperity, it likely decided to expand across the Anduin River to secure more land and taxes. However, in order to establish its next defensible position, Gondor would need to push all the way to the Harnon River, which would mean doubling its controlled territory, which is expensive in terms of how much control you'd need to manage. Ultimately, this didn't work out, so Gondor abandoned South Gondor to fall back across the Anduin River to a more controllable and defensive position. This likely came with a political crisis that could only be solved with a Game of Thrones authoritarian crackdown on any faction that challenged the rulers, which Denethor rose to power and has no reason to give control of Gondor to some random bastard from a long-lost house. Sauron saw what Gondor was going through and capitalized on it by attacking Osgiliath, while Denethor was far busier consolidating his power. But taking Osgiliath would take a lot of orcs to do so, which could weaken Sauron's forces enough that Rohan could possibly sweep in and take Osgiliath for themselves. At least those are the honeyed words of Saruman's agent, Grima Wormtongue. However, between the failed siege of Helm's Deep and the Ents marching on Isengard, Saruman fails and his Palantir exposes his connections with Sauron, which, from his alliances with the Corsairs of Umbar and the Easterlings, that this war isn't just about control over Osgiliath, especially since the Fellowship discovered Sauron's agents in the Shire, Bree, and Moria. Therefore, an alliance must be forged against the forces of Sauron and to cast the ring into the pit of Mount Doom to finish what Isildur failed to do. If you want me to do this for another map, then please put it down in the comments. Thanks for watching.